الو.
الو، ايه الاخبار؟
ايه الاخبار؟
الحمد لله تمام. بتعمل ايه؟
عملك هوست ولا كو هوست؟
اي حاجه مش فارقه.
هوست. ماريا اهي.
انا ادخل بنفرين.
استني، لا انت كده خليني هوست، رجعيني هوست تاني.
انا هوست.
اه انا رجعيني هوست تاني بسرعه.
طيب اوكي ثانيه. إيه. اوكي.
بس تمام. هعملك كو هوست عشان تأدمتي الناس.
اوكي.
هلو ماري.
Hello.
How you doing?
Very well, thank you. I am wearing my SPE 25 years pin and my background totally branded today. And
Yes.
it is my pleasure to see you guys. Nihal, how are
Yes,
you?
I'm good. How are you, Marie? How's everything?
Very well. Long time no see you in person.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, I'm just happy we're all okay and healthy.
Yes, exactly. Very good. This
We've been
has
doing
had
great work.
this YP Congress has had a huge resonance, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very happy to participate and thank you again for the invitation. I am always in appreciation of when you guys invite me.
Oh, we're happy to have you. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Christina and I put together our presentation like a dialogue. And we have agreed on the flow and who says what, and I think it's going to be very with charisma, like hopefully, because we are both co-chairs. So I was telling her, listen, it is like I could do the first part, you could do the second part of the presentation, no? But what about we do a dialogue? And so we practice, and I think it's going to come out very nicely.
As usual. I'm sure. It will be as usual.
It'll be a pleasure to see, of course.
So next one in Egypt, no?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah. COP 27.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
COP27 is in Egypt, yes.
Nice.
The one after it is in Emirates, so
In the
2 years
Emirates,
in a row.
UAE.
Yeah, 2 years in a row in the Middle East.
Yes. Very important, yeah.
Isabella is joining us.
Hello, Isabel. Hello, Matteo. Buondì. Salve.
Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. It's amazing. How are you doing? All good?
Yeah, all good. What about you?
Great. I'm gonna jump to the other, the two pitches meetings to see everything is running smoothly also there. So I will see you in a while. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sure.
So just
I am closing my.
Christina's joining us. So I'm making you as a co-host to have the access to share if any slides.
Is this better as a background or is too confusing?
No, it's cool. I
Okay.
like.
Yeah, nice.
Christina, I'm gonna send you this file so you can use it as a background if you have time, okay?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Hi, good morning and afternoon from the UK. This is Isabel Miranda. Just going
Hi,
to
Isabel.
try.
Isabel.
Good afternoon from the UK too.
You are just waiting for Rebecca. 1 minute, and we'll start.
Just a quick question. We can share our screen with the slides. Is that the plan, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay. I made you a co-host, and you are allowed to share your screen.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, Maria.
Hello, hi, Maria. How are you?
Hello, everyone.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon.
Oh. Hello, hi, Rebecca. Hi, Patricia. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Hi.
Patricia, I'm very glad you made it.
You know, I am going from muted to unmuted. Thank you, Mohammed, for send me the link. Are you going to have 3 sections as we are starting? I mean, do I need other Zoom links?
No.
No, this is the link for the sustainability panel, and in parallel we have 2 Zoom meetings for the pitches for the projects.
Okay. Can you send me those links, Mohammed?
Yes, sure.
I would appreciate that
Okay.
because really I think that all the sections are extremely interesting. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Just we'll start our panel, and then I will send you the link.
Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. So our great panelists, are you ready to start?
Yes, we are. As ready as we can be.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Based on your time location, it's an honor for me to moderate with Nihal the final chapter of the first ever International SPE Young Professional Congress. This project is a joint initiative between SPE Young Member Engagement Committee, YMEC, and SPE Business Management and Leadership Committee, which is, I'm honored to be a member in it. SPE Beyond the Borders, SPE Gaia, and SPE Diversity and Inclusion Committee. The event this year is sponsored by Shell, which is usual supporting many initiatives in the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, so thank you, Mohammed. Today we have a very special session lined up for you. We have very special guests, Rebecca, Isabel, Maria, and Christina, who have really interesting views on sustainability from different aspects. So yeah, we would really love to have you with us today. Thank you so much for joining, and we hope you enjoy the session today. Meanwhile, the teams participating in the IDAthon to present their sustainability projects are on another Zoom meeting, so you can also look at that if you want. Later on, we will have the award ceremony, and we will do a debriefing and feedback session for the whole YP Congress.
Yes, finally, we at the end of the SPE Congress. So let's start our panel today, and remember for the attendees or the listener for the panel to write your question in the Q&A section to be answered after each talk. We'll start with our first speaker today, Rebecca. Rebecca is an oil and gas famous industry, started her career as a subsurface engineer, and then later led the upstream conventional project for Shell in many regions like US, Europe, Asia. And then she transited to the International Energy Agency on secondment duty, supporting the full supply, investment, and geothermal for the World Energy Outlook team. She is a founding chair for the new SPA Geothermal Technical Section and vice chair for the Gaia Sustainability Development Technical Section as well. She is a member in 21-2030 HSES Program Committee for ATCE. The title of today's topic is World Energy Outlook for 2021. And as a summary for the speech today is how the energy outlook will be address a guide for an opportunities and benefits for this moment of the clean, and how the clean energy transition will be added for the future of our planet. So let's welcome Rebecca on the floor, and we are honored to have you today.
Thanks, Mohammed, and thanks to Nihal and Maria Julia for the invitation today, and as well to my fellow panelists that I'm looking forward to speaking with in a few minutes. I think this will be a great conversation. And please do bring your questions across on the Q&A, because I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation on sustainability as a whole and how that relates to the energy transition as we move forward. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Please let me know that you can see things well, and I'm going to go ahead and begin. So let's see here. Here we go. Can everybody see?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So Mohammed already gave my background. My name is Rebecca Schulz. I see some old colleagues and great friends on the call, and so welcome to everyone on this kickoff for the sustainability panel. To give a bit of background, I currently work at the International Energy Agency, and the IEA has quite a wide remit in the energy transition and the energy space. Before I dived in, though, I want to give just a brief bit of background on the IEA, because I'm not sure that everyone knows a bit of its history and where it's coming from before we dive into the World Energy Outlook, the outlook for demand and supply over the next 30 years, and how that relates to sustainability elements in the energy transition, and specifically for the Society of Petroleum Engineers. The IEA was founded in the 1970s, during the 1970s oil crisis, as part of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD. The mission of the IEA is really at the heart of where it's working. It takes a look and tries to provide background for energy security. It's really the heart of the global dialogue on energy, providing both authoritative analysis, data, policy recommendations, and trying to really get to real world solutions and implementation to help countries around the world provide secure and sustainable energy. I work in the World Energy Outlook team that really focuses on long-term scenarios and projections, and we look out to 2050. And I'm going to walk you through several of our scenarios, what those mean in terms of the pledges that countries have put forward recently, also as part of COP26, as that is starting to draw to a close, and then start to look at what we as an oil and gas industry organization can do, both to identify and both to implement these real world solutions. And so to start, and I apologize, I think you might be seeing this. So let me see if I can minimize this one away. And Mohammed and Nihal, I'll trust you if something breaks with the IT connections that we have, that you'll find me. To start with, we take a look at what the IEA terms its stated policy scenario. And that looks at what countries and governments around the world have put in place, and as far as their policies for demand looking forward. And based on the current policies that we see around the world that are actually instituted, not those that are made but not yet put in place, what governments and policies around the world show is that when we look at oil demand projection coming out of this COVID crisis that we've been in for the last few years, we see oil demand start to plateau at around 104 million barrels per day in the 2030s and start on a very slow decline through 2040 to 2050. And this involves and needs investment both in brownfield, which is highlighted as the existing and approved, and also greenfield, new field investment as well. Natural gas continues in this scenario to grow, and it grows to just over 5,000 BCM annually to 2050. And it grows, and natural gas continues to find a niche in the energy transition, and particularly in power generation in developing countries. Now, if we take a look at what countries around the world have pledged, and we have over 70 countries around the world that have announced pledges, not yet put them into place or legislated them, but that have announced pledges. And these countries are primarily advanced countries that are currently responsible for also about 70% of the CO2 and greenhouse gas emissions that we have globally. With these announced pledges in place, if these were all put into legislation and enacted, then we would see global oil demand drop to about 73 to 74 million barrels per day by 2050. Natural gas continues to grow until about 2030, but then its role as a transition fuel starts to go on the decline thereafter. And both in this case, we start to see that we do need investment in existing brownfields and also in new fields as well. As part of the COP26 presidency, the COP26 presidency had asked the IEA to create and look at a scenario that, that really puts at the heart of what it means to go to net zero by 2050. I think all around us, especially in the last 18 months to 24 months, we've seen a large number of countries and companies start to make net zero commitments. And the COP26 presidency asked us to take a look at what this would really mean and highlight that back as a bit of a mirror to the world to say, how difficult is it? What does it really look like to get us to net zero? And in this scenario, as a result of the policies that are put in place by countries around the world, demand decreases very, very quickly. And in this scenario, we don't need investments in new oil fields or new natural gas fields. The existing brown fields that we have and existing and approved are sufficient in order for us to be able to supply both oil and natural gas demands in this scenario. Now, this is a normative scenario. It's a scenario that takes a look at reaching a 2050 net zero goal and then works back to see what would it take to actually get there. Now, when we begin to look forward, one of the key pieces of this scenario is where are the investment dollars going for both oil and natural gas, but also for clean energy investment. And in the last few years, particularly following the 2014 oil price crash, investments have been decreasing around the world. Now, in this, we start to take a look, and the current level of investment going into oil and natural gas is a level that supports a net zero scenario. And that's a net zero scenario where governments around the world have enacted demand side policies to reduce oil demand. And we're not seeing that currently. What would need to happen in order to really transition to a net zero by 2050 pathway and projection forward, we would need to see clean energy investment triple in the 2020s. So beginning from 2022 to 2030, on average, we would need to see clean energy and infrastructure investment triple to about $3.5 trillion per year. And this is investment in new technologies, it's investment in infrastructure, in hydrogen, in CCUS, and in a number of technologies that would enable a net zero path forward. As part of this, and some specific work that we had put out in May 2020, we started to look not just at fossil fuels and some of the traditional energy sectors, but started to look more also on the role of critical minerals in a clean energy transition. And in this scenario, where we move to a net zero path forward by 2050, we start to see the energy, the value of international trade start to transform as we move forward to 2050. Now, you think today, the global economy is based on a fossil fuel economy. It's one that's driven by coal, natural gas, and oil, and to a lesser degree, minerals. As we start to make a transition, first with the announced pledges scenario, you start to see that critical minerals grows in importance in terms of international trade. As oil and natural gas start to decline, and new clean energy technologies like hydrogen, for example, start to increase as well. In a net zero scenario, as more countries are working locally and not just globally, the overall level of global trade starts to decline, and the role of critical minerals becomes increasingly important in this type of scenario. And this is a scenario where we're really moving away from a fossil fuel-based scenario and more to a scenario that's based on metals and minerals. But to be able to get to the level of emission reduction that we need in this scenario, there are several elements, and I'm just going to move a bit forward because I do want to make sure that we've got enough time for other panelists. Several other elements that are really critical to get us to this, let's say, this ambition gap to 2030. The IEA takes a look and is trying to rapidly reduce emissions to 2030 on the whole, and particularly in the net zero scenario. In the net zero scenario, we're trying to reduce methane emissions, for example, by 75%. In this, we see that about 40% of the actions required are cost effective today, and that would involve, for example, bringing low cost renewables into power, reducing methane leaks, and improving the efficiency of our overall energy system, but also of our oil and natural gas operations as well. I'm not going to highlight, I just want to bring to bear what some of the milestones are needed in a net zero scenario. And I'm gonna just let these stay up here for just a moment as we start to look at what some of this means. And I'm going to highlight just a few of these on the highlighting the level of growth in hydrogen that would already need to be in place in 2030. And we do see some good and interesting movements in that direction. A net zero electrical sector globally by 2050, and then, by 2040. And then by 2050, almost 70% of electricity generation is from solar, PV, and wind. I'm going to touch just briefly on as part of COP26, we have the Global Methane Pledge that we were very proud to be able to participate and help to further the conversation, as well as I think some of our other panelists as well. And so I want to highlight some resources for the audience today, the IEA Methane Tracker that's available online, as well as a regulatory roadmap and toolkit. And then in October of this year, just ahead of COP26, we also released a new report on curtailing methane emissions from fossil fuel operations. And in this, we dive in to see how can we deliver a 75% cut in methane emissions by 2030. And so if you pull up and you start to look at this tracker in more detail, we focus on the scenarios and projections from the IEA on the energy sector on the whole. And so within this, you can see the split in relative emissions, methane emissions from the energy sector, from oil, natural gas, coal, but also bioenergy. And how this relates to different countries around the world, both in terms of their overall emissions, but also the intensity of their emissions as well. So Russia and United States have a very high supply of oil and natural gas, but also are quite major contributors on the emission side as well. And there's, let's say, a fair imbalance as we move around the world and take a look at different countries on both the level of emissions and their intensity as well. we find from work that we've done with industry, but also governments and countries, that around 45% of the methane emissions from oil and gas operations can be abated at no net cost. And so that's capturing the methane, that's putting it into pipeline, into sales, and capturing the value of that. To do this, the goal and the path forward is tremendous. A 75% reduction between 2020 and 2030 is very difficult, but it is and can be achievable. And so I'm quite curious to bring the conversation on this piece on how to actually implement the methane emissions and the methane abatement possibilities from our audience at the SPYP conference. And so with this, I'm going to close and hand it back over to Mohammed and Nihil. But if I can stop my screen sharing appropriately.
Yes.
There we go.
You will start to share something else?
No, I was just trying to close that one out. Thanks, Mohammed.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca, for the very informative talk. It's a pleasure to have some insights about the world outlook and how the world think about the future of the energy. So, I have one question before checking the Q&A from the participants. What is the game changer or the main item in it changing the future of energy outlook in your opinion?
Sorry, Mohammed, can you say that one more time? What is the main outlook?
What is the game changer for the future of the energy outlook? How the future trends changes in your opinion?
Across the energy sector, so I'm not going to limit this question to oil and just oil and gas, but the major transformation that really starts to bring forward changes is the electrification globally that's not coming from oil and natural gas. And so it's the cost decreases that are coming from solar and wind and other renewables that have really allowed a competitive displacement of oil and natural gas, particularly in power generation. And so that's really changed the game in terms of low cost energy and where that can be implemented globally.
Okay, thank you. We have one question from Janir Wael. Why do IEA target cuts on oil and gas with rate much more than coal in your last slide?
I can see that. So within the methane emission reductions that are coming from the oil and natural gas elements, it is on the coal side, we're looking at current mines and abandoned mines that largely are effectively leaking methane to the atmosphere. So as long as those mines are still open and running or have not been properly abandoned, then the methane emissions are not necessarily reduced. On the oil and natural gas side, there's been a huge movement in the last few years from satellites that are able to visualize and to really see where methane emissions are coming from, where we have major venting happening, and where we are flaring from as well. So we're much better able to both visualize and start to implement changes within that sector. And so I hope that I'm thinking of the right slide in answering that question.
Yes, he got it. He said fair enough. Thank you so much. So anyone have more questions?
I have a question, if that's okay.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for the great presentation. My question is related to funds. Like, how do you see the fund allocation is going to work, especially when we're talking about countries like Central Asia, where there is a huge lack of fund? For example, if we talk about Kazakhstan, if you're implementing CCS projects, this will double the electricity bill, you know? So when it comes to fund again, how do you see this working? Thank you.
No, it's a great question, because I think that question can be expanded not just to the oil and natural gas sector, but essentially developing economies on the whole. And the IEA had put out a significant report in June of this year, where it starts to look at financing clean energy transitions around the world, but particularly in developing economies. Because and I think if you're reading anything that's coming from COP26 today, or especially over the last few days, you've got a conflict between the advanced economies, the Western, largely the Western economies that are trying to implement emission reductions on the future pathways for developing economies. And as I mentioned earlier, you've got about 70% of global emissions that are coming from advanced economies. But in the future emissions that are coming to 2050 are not those coming from advanced economies, as advanced economies can afford to make the transition to electric vehicles and to decarbonize transport. But it's really how do you shift funding mechanisms, as you've asked, over into developing economies. And that's the role of, I would say, two large entities and buckets. It's really needed to be pulling together both public and private investment, and some of that public investment coming from development banks that are focused and still open to, on the oil and gas side, focused to methane and emissions reduction scenarios as well. In this case, and in particularly in oil and natural gas, it's going to be a lot of the private sector or the national oil companies as well that are starting to shift funding into those locations. You start to see more and more that more of the development banks, the Asian development banks, statements from the US government as well, that are really limiting funding to go into future sources of oil and gas supply. And part of that gray area that we need to continue to discuss and find a path forward on is oil and natural gas arguably is going to be part of supply moving forward, and we need to be reducing the emissions from that supply. And so how do you continue to be pushing emission reduction and funding emission reduction and opportunities into those areas and those countries? Because there's two, so I'm going to say one more thing before we close with this is, contrary to perhaps when I started in the industry, there's much more focus on our customers than there were before. And I would say we've got two main customers in this. We have our shareholders and our investors that are customers that are in many cases wanting us to have a lower emission supply in future. And then there's also our customers in terms of the countries that we're selling to. And for example, if you take a look at the EU taxonomy that's coming forward, it's going to be increasingly difficult for these countries to be also importing oil and natural gas without necessarily having a funding mechanism to allow those countries to reduce funding in the future.
Thank you so much. Great answer.
Thank you, Rebecca, for your talk and having you with us today. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure, and I'm looking forward to Christina and Maria Angela and Isabel's presentations as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you. So now it's time to our second special guest, which is Isabella Miranda. She is a director for social performance and sustainability at IPECA and leads the work for a number of IPECA working groups, including reporting, sustainability development, social responsibility, and human rights. Isabella has worked in the industry for many years, moving from external communication to social investment programs, and then to social and human rights impact and risk management. Prior to IPECA, Isabella holds many very senior roles within the multinational organization, including BP Business in Europe and Kazakhstan, ExxonMobil, and P&G. The title of today's talk is the UN Sustainable Development Goals and how it is related to the oil and gas sector. Welcome, Isabella, and it's our pleasure to have you today.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Can you see me? I'm just, I think I'm not being able to put my video on, so I'm not sure why. Start video. Let's see.
Yes, now we
Yes,
can see you.
perfect. Excellent. Yes, always a bit with technology. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to join you all this morning and this afternoon from the UK. It's a really great pleasure to be here with you today. As you mentioned, I have been in the industry for almost 20 years, and I think I'm passionate about sustainability, so really excited to be part of this panel. And as I go into the introduction, I think what I would like to share with you is a little bit what IPICA has been doing around the Sustainable Development Goals and what we describe as our roadmap for the oil and gas sector. Before doing that, and I would like to say that IPICA has a real sort of strategic collaborations in the past with SPE. It's been a real pleasure to be with you again today, and really excited to present to this audience. I want to tell you a little bit for those that are less familiar about IPICA, who we are, just very briefly. And IPICA is the Global Oil and Gas Industry Association, and we really focus on advancing the oil and gas industry as in terms of environment, social performance, and really to contribute to the transition and sustainable development. So IPICA was formed, just to give you a little bit of background, in 1974, and it was really at the request of UNEP. And it really is an organization that covers both the upstream and downstream for our members. We are a member-led organization that we operate around the world. And we also have a number of associations that are represented as part of our membership. I think one of the things that distinguish IPICA, which is interesting, is that we are a non-lobby organization. So our role is really to convene the sector and really have that element of real engagement and peer learning with members. I think the other key differentiator is that our members are really experts in the sector, and I think we have a number of working groups in I think areas that are increasingly important, which cover not only sort of climate, the sort of biodiversity, and also sort of from a people's perspective, sort of increasing work around business and human rights and supply chain. So with that, I would like to tell you, I mean, and I'm going to go, before going into the IPICA SDG sort of roadmap, just you all are quite familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, but just to set the context, they were adopted by 193 UN member states in 2015. And the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals really provide an ambitious, transformative, and global framework to achieve a more sustainable future for all in 2030. And they really represent the world's plans of action for overcoming poverty while protecting the planet and ensuring that people enjoy peace and prosperity. So in terms of the oil and gas sector, and sort of for IPICA, as we really rapidly approach the 2030 deadline to deliver the UN Sustainable Development Goals, we really felt that there was a need for concerted action and coordinated solutions involving all parts of society. And in response to that, and recognizing the industry's huge potential to support the SDGs, IPICA joined forces with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and we produced what is called the Accelerating Action SDG Roadmap for the Oil and Gas Industry. We launched this in 2021, and really the roadmap outlines how the oil and gas sector can really accelerate action and scale up activities to contribute to the 2030 agenda. I think the WBSD were really excellent partners in this endeavor, as they have produced a number of sector roadmaps. I was pleased to say, and I will tell you a little bit more about my experience in Glasgow last week, but they were also very active there, and I think it's been a really interesting organization to work with in terms of how we can convene with a broad range of stakeholders. So as all of you are aware energy is a key driver of sustainable development and has been described as the golden thread that links most of the SDGs. And without energy, many of the other SDGs cannot be achieved. So the oil and gas are, of course, key pillars for the global energy system and drivers of economic and social development. The industry provides the affordable and reliable energy essential for economic growth, employment, education, eradication of poverty, and global health. And the global oil and gas industry really has the opportunity to contribute across the 17 SDGs, either by enhancing its positive contribution or by mitigating negative impacts. So the launch of the roadmap is just the latest of some of the efforts that we've had as part of IPICA to ramp up the SDG action along global efforts to achieve peace and prosperity for people and the planet. IPICA has taken a keen interest in the SDGs since the launch of the SDGs in 2015. And it has been working on sustainable issues since it was founded 45 years ago and participated in the 1992 Earth Summit in Brazil and Rio +20. So this sort of slide gives you a bit of a sort of a trajectory of some of the sort of the path that we have followed in terms of the publication of the roadmap in 2021. In parallel of the development of the roadmap, I think the other really interesting perspective for IPICA has been that we have been working in a new strategy that we launched in 2021. And this really includes a vision to really advance the oil and gas industry's environment and social performance, and also support the sector's contribution to the energy transition and sustainable development. And beneath these, we have really 4 thematic areas of focus. One on climate, nature, people, and sustainability. And I will tell you a little bit about some of them in a little bit more detail as part of this presentation. So having said a little bit of the background on the roadmap, I'd like to turn into the detail of what we have developed. So while the oil and gas industry contributes to all 17 SDGs, the roadmap highlights 10 SDGs where the industry can have the biggest impact. The roadmap also highlights 8 impact opportunities, which highlight where IPICA and the sector can accelerate action and drive impact to prioritize the SDGs. These impact opportunities are grouped across the 3 themes: climate, nature, and people. And then the roadmap identifies some corresponding actions, or what we call impact pathways, to realize the opportunities, comprising of a series of 93 specific short, medium, and long-term actions, both for IPICA and for individual companies. And as we were developing this process last year, I think what was really interesting is that level of engagement of the experts from our member companies in the process in trying to craft these impact pathways. And to me, having been part of the process, I think the process was almost as rich as the outcome, which was very interesting in terms of understanding the different levers from companies, some of the challenges, and also being able to provide sort of that broader context, convening other key stakeholders. So the next slide, and I don't want to, in the interest of time, just to give you just a little bit of a snapshot. So for instance, looking at this slide on people, and I'm sort of quite passionate about it because this is one area that I'm responsible from an IPICA point of view in terms of the work that we do. But we really are focusing on areas like, for instance, governance and transparency, supporting governments and aligning priorities around the SDGs, communities, and ensuring that host governments share in prosperity from the industry's activities, and thriving workforces, providing productive, safe, and happy workplaces. And a lot of the work that we do, and this is one of the things that we are very keen to mainstream this SDG roadmap into our work plans for the different working groups to be able to have some very clear accountabilities in terms of action. So really all to give you sort of a sense of these obviously actions or pathways will support the achievement of a number of SDGs that are listed below, sort of SDG 3 looking at good health and well-being, SDG 7 looking at affordable and clean energy, SDG 8 decent work and economic growth, etc. On climate, and I thought that this was probably also interesting just to share with you, especially in light of what is happening just now with COP, but I think this provides you a little bit of a deep dive in terms of the climate opportunities. And really these systemic opportunities are in three main areas. One is around policy and partnerships, promoting effective policies and partnerships that support the innovation needed to transform the energy system and build climate resilience. Innovation, investing to enable low carbon products and solutions. And operations around advancing emissions and reductions in the industry operations. I have a couple of more last slides, and I thought this probably was an opportunity to put into light how some of the work that we are doing around the SDG roadmap took place last week in Glasgow. I had the opportunity to be there in the first week, and I think I was very prominently present and has been very present since the beginning of sort of the Conference of Parties. And I guess to share with you two perspectives. One was around, we had a very interesting side event where we basically convened a number of stakeholders, including UNEP, the IEA, the OECD, OGCI, etc. And it was really an opportunity to have a panel looking at improving operations to reach net zero across that with the stakeholder groups. We also had a number of our member companies participating, providing their perspectives. And I think the other dimension, which for me was very interesting and something that I was sort of quite keen to cover as part of what was happening in COP, and I think to highlight with this audience, was that I think COP26 really highlighted the importance of bringing business and the human rights approach in line with the just transition or the energy transition. And there were a number of very interesting events that were convened by the think tanks and civil society organizations. One of them in particular was an event organized by the Institute of Business and Human Rights, where they really convene the industry in terms of beginning to articulate what are some of the aspects that are relevant from the interface between climate and sort of the business and human rights aspects. My last slide, and really is just to say with you that I think the roadmap for us really represents an opportunity to place climate, nature, and people at the heart of our recovery and reaffirm our collective commitment to achieving the SDGs. We know that we need to pace ourselves as an industry, but we do see the SDGs as we fast approach the 2030 deadline to deliver as a really critical path. And I think this represents a very positive contribution from the industry and a way to really provide that element of engagement and innovation. And I'm going to leave it there as part of this presentation. And it's been a great opportunity to be with you this morning. Over to you, Mohammed.
Thank you so much, Isabel, for the very informative presentation talk. Actually, it was very interesting to see how I think impacted the roadmap for oil and gas companies, and how to change the companies to implement the SDGs in oil and gas. I have a small question. How can we accelerate the implementation of these ideas and these initiatives in the oil and gas?
Oh, that's a very good question, Mohammed. I think part of it is, I think, being able to convene the industry to have that sense of focus and sense of urgency as well in terms of why this is so important. I think COP can only sort of what has happened in the last couple of weeks as part of the climate negotiations is only a reflection of that. And I think the role of the private sector and the role of the industry in terms of innovation and reducing emissions, but also I think making those contributions around sustainable development more broadly in terms of what are going to be the impacts of you know, the oil and gas sector activities in communities, in society, in workers, etc. So to me it's all about sort of, in a way, a little bit of that peer pressure and that sense of you know, international best practices and how you really convene the industry to push forward. And that's a little bit a lot of what we do at IPICA. It's that sort of peer learning, understanding of how we can do things better and how also we can collaborate with others. And to me, the SDGs is sort of really that platform for collaboration, which is really, really important.
Yes, I can't agree more with you. So the floor is open now for questions. Anyone has a question?
I have a question. Yeah, sorry, we're not hogging the session, everyone. We have a lot of questions because the talks and the presentations are great. So it's a question that is not really a question. I was actually wanted to ask if IPICA has the kind of the video of the last. Well, it's not last week, it was November 4th, if I remember correctly, the panel session in COP26, because it was in the blue zone, so not everyone had access to that. And in my opinion, it was one of the greatest sessions. So if we can get a link or like the takeaway messages to that to share with the audience, it would be super.
Thank you very much for that, Nihal. And we'll definitely, I know a part of the event was recorded, and we'll definitely try to find how we can share it with this audience. That would be really good. And I think the team is also putting together a short summary note. So I'll be in touch with the opportunity to share that. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Isabel, so much for your time and for being with us today. And it was a pleasure having you.
It's a great pleasure, and look forward to hearing the rest of the panelist speakers. Thank you so much, Mohammed.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So now we are moving to Nihal and two other great speakers and some specific women in oil and gas and sustainability. So the mic with you, Nihal.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. It actually gives me a great pleasure to present our next two speakers. And I'm saying two speakers because they have one presentation that they will alternate in presenting in a very cool way, I presume. So I'm going to talk about the talk first, and then I'm going to introduce to you the two speakers. The talk is called Women in Resource Management, a global initiative to boost participation of women in all sectors, segments, and leadership of resource management. So these amazing two women are a part of the UNECE-EGRM. So if you don't know what that means, I don't blame you. It's United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. That's the expert group on resource management. These women had a great initiative called Women in Resource Management that both of them co-chair. The talk is basically a positive step to boost the contribution and participation of women in all industries, sectors, legalizations, and workflow, because we know women are a pivotal element of the success of the sustainability and resource management and really address the challenges of climate change. So on to our speakers, I'm gonna start with Maria Capello. So Maria Capello is a renowned world leader and author in sustainability, reservoir management, diversity and inclusion, and digital transformation. She has been the SPE Distinguished Lecturers for many years now. As I said, she is the co-chair for Women Resource Management Committee and a founding partner of Red Tree Consulting, a consulting firm that is specialized in sustainability initiative. Capello is also the lead author of 2 books, Learned in Trenches and Mentoring and Sponsorship. Maria Capello is the Knight of Order of the Star of Italy. I'm so sorry, I cannot pronounce this in Italian because I do not speak Italian. This is basically the highest civil honor conferred by the President of Italy to Italians abroad. Our second speaker for today is Christina Robinson. She is the development lead for Excite UK division of SAPEM, in charge of the research and development program and the subsea and digital innovation. She is a geologist by education. She has over 20 years of experience across natural resources sectors, mining and petroleum, matured through technical and commercial roles in the field of geospatial, subsurface technologies, and data analysis. So with that, I will hand the mic to you ladies. And yeah, we just, for the audience, just sit back and enjoy. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nihal and Mohammed. Thank you all for the invitation. And we have crafted, Christina and I, a conversation. And we will start from this very moment. Christina, I think that you will share the slides at your end, right?
I'm trying to find the right screen.
All right. So in the meantime, we certainly appreciate the invitation we received to be part of the sustainability panel. And we are glad to be the last speakers because our previous speakers provided a fantastic framework. And I would like to appreciate the fantastic presentations of Rebecca and of course of Isabel. And they spoke to us about how the 2030 agenda is articulated. But if you think about that, we saw the major plans, the executive views of what needs to happen, right? So that we enjoy the 2030 as we want it. But Christina and I are going to talk to you about one of the aspects, one of the facets of this issue that is not in the first row of all the presentations, and you are going to see why. So with this, we start, and let's see the next slide, please. What we brought for you is a brief presentation with a little bit of context, and then we are going to deep dive into the sustainability and resource management as we envision that. And as Nihal was saying, right, what is this EGRM, UNFC, and the UN RMS? We are going to give an explanation of what is the framework we work in, to then explain a little bit what are the Women in Resource Management Initiative about, to share with you some recent activities and our envisioned way forward. I would like to highlight before we start our presentation that we cannot be happy if our neighbors are not in good shape or if our neighbors are suffering. And as a society, right, we are 50%, I would say, men and women. So today, we are going to speak to you about that other 50% in resource management. So here we go. Our first slide is, of course, the very concept of sustainability, which is meeting our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So what a beautiful concept. And that concept is absolutely based in 3 pillars, which are economic development, the social development within environmental protection. Many times we think that what we want to achieve is economic development and social development alone, and we don't care about the environment. Or people think that sustainability is all about the environment. Well, yes, it is. But I would say that I think Rebecca and also Isabel say it very well. We are achieving, we are aiming towards a 2030 that will provide less poverty and more quality of life for all. So next slide. The framework that we have is, of course, the 17 SDGs that was very well explained, I would say, by Isabel, right? It was set in 2015, and they set our global agenda for overcoming poverty, protecting the planet, and especially to promote peace and prosperity. This global framework is adapted to the specific needs or objectives of the organizations, companies, countries, communities, even societies. But if you think about that, for example, what we saw in the IPECA roadmap was, of course, highlighting their main SDGs that they know they can tap into with the oil and gas industry. But today we are going to talk to you, we are going to expand that because we are focusing particularly in one SDG, perhaps two that you will see, which are SDG, of course, gender equity. So let's keep going. What are our issues for the 21st century? Well, you can see here we have 7 in particular, okay? Because there is this idea that the resource production, in particular minerals, oil and gas, is like a drain industry that extracts wealth and well-being and economic growth, but leaves behind many social and environmental problems. In particular, the 7 aspects and elements that are there in the slides will certainly be the issues that we have to tap into. And women are part of the solution. This is why you will see now the particularities of the framework of the United Nations in relation to this. And let's see how we do this. Cristina, would you illustrate that?
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Yes, I'll carry on from here. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone, first. So the 2030 agenda is called for integrated and undivisible sustainable development. On this framework, with a long-term approach, looking at benefit for present and future generation, is the action set for the EGRM, the expert group in resource management, that has actually been active in sustainable development and management of resources since 2004. The group has a mandate from the UN to develop the United Nations Framework Classification for Resources and further expand to the UN RMS Resource Management System that will provide a toolkit for to assist countries and to sustainably manage their natural resources in alignment with the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. So it's a toolkit to achieve, to take a step forward to the achievement of the goals set with the sustainable development goals that we talked. So the idea behind the creation of this toolkit is to provide the basis for a reliable, comparable, transparent, and coherent information on natural resources reporting and assist in the choice that countries make in promoting projects to develop and work within the 2030 objectives. So moving next, just to give more information on this group. So is behind the creation of this framework. You are probably very familiar with the SPPRMS. So it's a system for the mapping of resource projects. In fact, the SPE has been behind the UNFC. The UNFC system is mapped against the SPPRMS, as well as the mineral sector classification system, the CRISCO system, and the nuclear sector. The Red Book, in fact, for the sector is mapped within the UNFC. So it's a universally acceptable and internationally applicable scheme for the sustainable management of all energy and raw material. We say energy because you can see here from this picture, colorful pictures, that expanded from the commodities of petroleum, coal, and minerals, nuclear minerals, into renewable energy, water resources, anthropogenic resources, and underground storage. So it's a beautiful example on how from the industry we can actually participate, share our knowledge and experience into the support of the transition. The stakeholders for the utilization of the system are, of course, government, policymakers, anyone who is involved in the management of our resources and stepping into the financing of projects. So it's a very important tool and unique in its essence. So let's have a quick look at what it looks like. Some of you may have seen this before. This is a three-dimensional system. And you're all familiar on the reserves concept, right? And the movement from resources to reserves. So we map the uncertainties in the mapping of our resource base, and that's the G-axis. So it's a system made of 3 axes. G came from geological uncertainties. So you can see that the system is born within the mineral and the petroleum sector. It is a degree of confidence into the volume and the quantities of the resources that we are addressing. So it is applicable to wind and solar in the same way, or geothermal, for instance. The technical feasibility of the project is the F-axis, but then the beauty of it is the E-axis, so the third axis of this system that maps the environmental and socioeconomic viability of a project. And this is the beauty of the system. It's different as it puts this, let's say, social environmental consideration at the center of resource mapping. So we all know the criteria of commerciality that we use for stepping from resources to reserves. Within this, we have the economic viability, so our NPV assessment, and we also have legal, environmental, and social consideration. They are embedded into, if you want, a cutoff date for our forecasts, but it's very difficult once we pass the economic threshold to really map how the project is hitting on, let's say, on the social side. We all heard about social license to operate. It's a very gray area. It's not well defined. With this system, you can actually map how the project is moving across the specific axis. And for this reason, it's very important to the objective of a sustainable development. So if you want to find out a little bit more on this, on the UniC EGRM page, you will find all the details and also how this is applicable across the different energy sectors. So the committee, how is this organized? We have about 300 different experts contributing on a voluntary base to this. And this is very important because our people passionate and devoted to change, like you all are here. So there is a bureau, there is a UniC secretary. We are divided into technical advisory groups that you can see mapped in here for the different commodities. Under renewable, you can see which areas are being targeted by the group with the extension of this framework. And within this, we have the women in resource management. What is interesting here is that we didn't become a subgroup just to explore the SDG 5 and SDG 8, but we are at the same level as a commodity group. So it's a technical advisory group that can provide inputs to the framework classification. And this is a very important recognition from the EGRM to this topic. It's of incredible relevance and importance to sustainable development. So if we move forward, just to give you a little bit of a background, actually I'll go step one step back. The Women in Resource Management in particular was initiated by the Executive Secretary of the UniC, Ms. Olga Algayerova, who asked women within the EGRM to step up action to support the empowerment of women and girls in this sector. So in 2019, the group was formed. We were tasked initially with targeting SDG 5 because the group recognized that diversity and inclusion in resource management brings powerful and positive benefit. But the pandemic arrived. So as the UN went into an emergency mode, so did we. And we were asked to focus on the SDG 8, very important, as women have been heavily affected by the pandemic. They've been at the forefront of the response. At the same time, we need to look at ways on post-pandemic recovery mode, what would enable economies to come out of this disaster and how women could participate. So a study was launched at the same time to investigate what are the enablers and also what are the stumbles out there, like financial access to financing, what type of areas women could contribute around the main industry. So there is a separate study that is accessible as well within the EGRM page of the UN. So women participation in resource management, we don't need to say, we know has been there since the beginning. This picture is very, I'm very attached to this because it's a picture from miners from the place where I come from and where my career as a geologist started. And we know the contribution should not be forgotten, is what we're taking with us to understand how far we've gone from that time and what have we learned. So the UNICE EGRM Women in Resource Management Initiative wants to promote, support, and expand participation of women into challenges and success. We are organized for different core groups, mapping the technical groups, the tags that you've seen in the mapping. We operate through webinars, workshop, and eventually thinkathons when we can meet in person again in Geneva, hopefully next year. The idea is to coordinate with industry associations like the SPE, but also with the International Women in Mining and any others that we will contact in the near future to identify the enablers to SDG 5 attainment, SDG 8 attainment, and maintain a global focus. And we will see why. In a post-COVID scenario, we will expand also in looking at this micro, small, and medium enterprises opportunities. And out of all this work, the objective is to have an input on the guidelines. We need to have a definition of how women can be empowered in a regulatory framework, if you want. So have this available for all the ones going to manage projects in natural resources. So this is the work. Main concept here is that we want to accelerate change. So we know that a lot of studies have been done on the situation of women in the industry. We want to just start from those and accelerate through sharing best practices and experiences. And this is what we have done. So now I have a question instead for Maria. Are we achieving the SDG 5 and SDG 8? Where are we?
Oh my God, Cristina, that question is the question. Are we achieving SDG 5 and SDG 8? Please, can I have the next slide? Because I prepared an answer for you. And the answer is no. We are not achieving that. And if we rely on the UN Global Sustainable Development Report, which is titled The Future is Now, well, it's not only for women that this is happening, right? Or decent work, which is SDG 5 and 8. We are still far off achieving most of the 169 targets in the 17 SDGs. But let's now take like a magnifying glass, Cristina. Can I see the next slide? Yes, because if we want to see what is the relevance of SDGs for the key stakeholders in resources management, you know, we want to take a look at least at two of the main ones. Why? Because if we are able to impact positively women in the main stakeholders, we may have a chance, right, of understanding how and if there is interest in advancing the agenda of the SDGs in all our key stakeholders. So let's take a look and see what happens in oil and gas. If we see what happens in oil and gas, I am relatively glad to let you know and share with you something that you already know for the big you know, news and noise even that is happening in our oil and gas industry. We can see the transformation of the messages that the main operators and companies related to oil and gas are delivering. See Total, for example. They rebranded themselves as Total Energies, and we see that Total service companies as Schlumberger, BP, and also the national oil companies. I took Petrobras as an example from Latin America, one of my favorite regions. is showing, right, that the SDGs, they are speaking in the language of SDGs. They are interested in advancing these SDGs. And if we see what happens in mining, okay, we will see that the main companies working in mining, I took some examples here, not only they also are speaking in the SDGs languages. By the way, the mining developed their own atlas of sustainability, how they advance each one of the SDGs, but also they have given a huge importance to what is happening. And I am sharing with you the photo of Bobby Foote, one of the women at the very top levels, in this case of the mining industry, when she went to Geneva to show what was her company agenda for the SDGs, BHP. So in the next slide, okay, we will now pose to ourselves some important elements. And those are that women participation is not equal. And we can see in the pie charts, right, that it's only 26%, let's say, of national parliaments, 36% of local government, and a very sad 28% of managerial positions. Not only that, but the pandemic affected seriously women, and particularly women in resources management, I would say. And 255 million full-time jobs were lost, and many of those affected women. So, wow, when we see that, yes, those is a little bit, you know, statistics that will show what is the situation. But now I'm going to show you something even more graphical. And those are the evolution of the representation of women in the corporate ranks by gender. From entry level, which is all the bars to the left of every graph, to the CEO level. So if we see in blue color, from 2015 to 2020, this is taken from the latest report of McKinsey, we see that at the beginning, so at entry level, women shape almost the half, okay, of corporation. But as you go up the ranks, they only reach to values of 20, 21%. But perhaps this is not so serious. And if we see the next slide, now you will see why I'm saying that is not so serious, although it is, of course, very sad. But the thing is that when you see the difference, when you apply the lens of, for example, the representation of race in that, in the upper part of the slide, we can see that women, white women in the oil and gas in this case, we can see that it is represented only in very scarce percentages and very, very few percentages to the order of 3% in the CEO level. But look at men, and especially white men, how they go to the C-suite. Wow! So the percentages completely, you know, are opposite to the funnels that we saw before. And if those men are men of color, it looks like there is that kind of representation. So there is something going on in resource management that we need to tap into. So with that, let's see what are the actions and especially what are the kind of conclusions that we have observed from the research of our group and the webinars. And with this, Christina, can you enlighten us?
Yes, of course. Let's have a look at what have we done as women in resource management. As I mentioned, we've been working through webinars, particularly as we could not meet in person in Geneva. And I think it's been a very good way to engage with a very wide global audience, starting from mining. So we started looking at where there was a wealth of experience in addressing this problem, this gap, and trying to pursue empowerment of women and diversity within the industry. So I showed just a couple of slides that we've taken from the webinar that was held in October 2020. Here is a slide, in fact, from the International Women Association in mining. And you can see they've highlighted the same concept that women have been involved since the beginning in mining. And today they occupy a very different levels of engagement within the industry itself in every different parts of the world. As you can see here, you got UK pictures, you got West Africa, Canada, you got Malawi and Mongolia. So they really express the concept that women in mining, and I love this, are as global and diverse as mining itself. That poses actually a very important concept, the fact that we cannot just utilize one method that fits all, but we actually need to contextualize the discussion about women. Different areas of the world, as we discovered through this webinar, of course, have different needs, and they're actually at a different level of pursuing the attainment of gender empowerment in the industry. This is not a new discussion, but it's not standardized either. So the aim of the International Women in Mining is to influence, of course, the international policy to achieve a global change. But what is important and what I highlighted here is that we need framework, we need support at government level within companies, but what we need really is a mindset change. It's a bias that needs to be removed. And this, we will see this is actually perceived across, of course, all industries. In particular, in this first webinar, we put together two phases of the mining industry, Australia and South Africa. And there was a reason behind this. We remember we talk about accelerating change. Well, we wanted countries that they have advanced policies in women to share with others, so things can be learned quicker, not just going through its own mistakes, but learning from others and implementing based on this. So we've seen a very different approach to the problem. In Australia, being a mature industry when it comes to progress gender equality, they're looking at inclusion of women on boards, leadership position, and closing, for instance, the gender pay gap. That in any case is a big issue across the, removing those numbers that Maria shared earlier. When we look at South Africa, what was reported is a need really for more practical approach. There are really basic needs that still are untackled and not resolved. One of these is safety of women in the workplace. Harassment is a big issue, as well as, and this is something that really shocked me actually, is the fact there is no PPE specific for women. So women are not even protected from a safety perspective. We assume that this is a given, but the industry is not all made by big corporations that really have an eye for this and implement proper policies. There are a lot of smaller players, and this is where these problems are most perceived and present. So very big differences, and that was very important, that through the International Women in Mining that has a capillary approach to the problem, creating groups everywhere where there is a mining activity and coordinating, there is the ability to share and accelerate this change. So it was a beautiful, beautiful message. I put this slide here just to show you directly from the slides of the webinar from the Minerals Council in South Africa. Look at their foundational measure. The first one is zero tolerance, stop abuse, zero tolerance to violence in the workplace. And this is quite shocking, actually. We don't think this still happens, but it does, and is a big problem. So they're tackling, of course, the problems through training. They're initiating unconscious bias training to transform culture. They realize that often the problem is in the mind of people, in the way they act in their culture. So this was a very, very important moment of reflection of the fact that we need to contextualize the approach and make sure that every woman everywhere in the industry is safe and has the opportunity to grow. And the next slide instead, I want to share with you the importance of having large corporations going forward, as they can share actually the value of gender diversity and inclusion concept within the value creation for a company. So they mapped really well how, let's say, diverse teams contribute to safety within the company, but even more inclusive team can produce a much better result. So if you have a diverse team, they're 10% more likely to speak up about problems. And if you have an inclusive team, you have 68% more likely to speak up. That means that in this case, people feel empowered to be part of the problem-solving process. They obviously feel part of that company, and the productivity, of course, results in better performances. So I like this because it really shows a tangible result of why empowering women, diversity and inclusion policies, and application within the industry produce value. There was a whole reason why the Women in Resource Management was started. So I'll pass now to Maria to look instead at the oil and gas industry. As we moved from one webinar to the other, we had a second one that looked specifically at net zero, and Maria will share the exciting results actually from the second webinar that we had.
Yes, and thank you, Christina. I love to speak about oil and gas. And as we did with the mining, it is also very challenging for the small, mid-size companies, especially for those independents, to exert actions in order to reach parity for the women in oil and gas. And we were happy to share the examples of two companies, one in particular from Latin America. This is GeoPark. They have operations in 5 countries, and they have a system which is speed. And this is their priorities for employees and environment. And we were even a little bit surprised to see that they have parity in all levels of the company, which is something to think about what they did. And they say that what they did is to search for the talent, not for the gender. Next one will show you another company, but this time, I also wanted to show you the exact numbers of GeoPark. This is the 45% of the management team, 34 of the company employees are women in relation to the 22, which is global statistics. And 43, as per the 2020 numbers, are they're women in the workforce. So this complete the vision that you may have about GeoPark's story of success in gender parity. And we think this is something to think about, how they reach it, because they even have a larger number of women in the leading positions. The next example now, yes, we have it, is from Nigeria, and is also a small to mid-sized company, independent, is Winters Rand Petro Oman company, and they have even won awards at the Africa regional level and global level about their success in parity. And the photos you see here are the leaders of the board that they have. And they actually have the reverse problem. They have an over percentage of women rather than men, which is very interesting, but also shows the empowerment and self-empowerment that African women have. So I really like to share with you the stories of Nigeria and Latin America small companies, but let me now show you one of the giants in our industry, and this is Equinor. And Equinor story is one of change and resilience, because resilience implies also adapting before the issue happens. And of course, being based in Norway, they are focused on diversity, and these are the elements that they are focusing on right now. So they consider diversity matters and they walk the talk. I think the important element here is that they walk the talk. And they do have women in directorship levels, team leadership levels, managerial levels, that not only inspire others to do the same, but that show the way and the roadmap to do it. Next one, please. This is another of our giants, because we want you to have a vision of what is going on in the world. And in oil and gas, we see the relevance of sustainable development energy for Eni. I am very happy to show this slide because this is from Italy. And Eni, as you see, have operations all over the world. And in particular, these photos are from Africa, in which the very concept of diversity goes not only for their own personnel, but also for the activities they do with the communities, which is part of the sustainability elements that we see with local talent and with the development of the communities they tap into. Next one. That brings me to the question. What are we going to do about the future? And I cannot, I want to say something before I pass it over to Cristina. We women are not a minority. We are underrepresented because when we are all together, we are majority, I mean, we are 50% anyways. What we are is underrepresented. It's like when I have spent my life saying that as an Italian or as a Venezuelan, I am a minority. I am not a minority because when I am in Venezuela, I am part of the Venezuelan people. When I am in Italy, I am another Italian. I am just underrepresented when I am in another context. So what we want is for women to be properly represented in the oil and gas and in the resource management. Right, Cristina?
Yes, big question now. What about the future? Yeah, the future is yours, young professionals. The future is yours and younger generations. So the best way to tackle the challenges that we have ahead is really to participate at whatever level you can and take part, share your ideas, your opinion, your feelings, and help shaping the world that we want to see. So this is happening also within the EGRM, who has just created, it was approved in March 2021, a young member group. So it's estimated that this group will, as it goes across industry and globally, will reach potentially 100,000 young members very quickly. And the aim of this group is to really utilize, not to listen, but to utilize the perspective and skills of young professionals to develop and apply the UNFC and the concept of the UN resource management system to provide a platform to educate others, but also to work as professionals and understanding the importance of sustainable resource management. So the idea is that the chapter is open to everybody and is looking at connecting with existing realities like the young professional of SPE, but also in the mining sector and the renewable sector, and really work together in what makes a difference. So we need a framework to sustain governments in making the right decision, choosing the right project for their own people. It can still be oil and gas, it can still be coal, but we need to understand how these projects are sustainable. And we shouldn't forget in our choices that there are countries that are energy hungry and they need to achieve the same level of prosperity that we've achieved utilizing these resources. The aim is also to think about the finite element of the fossil fuels and we need to act on this. When I started in my career, we were looking at renewable as to tap the problem of oil disappearing and getting into peak oil. And the same for the minerals. What I've seen actually from Rebecca's slide is this pressure now moving towards critical materials. So framework like the UNFC are even more important as we need to make sure that that shift to support achieving climate change goals, achieving sustainable sustainability are not actually shifting uncontrolled pressure elsewhere. So from today, I think we're all working under this objective, and it's beautiful to see that we're all tackling different parts to achieve the full picture for us today and for the next generation. So with this, we conclude, and we're open to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies, for the well, I think I will undermine it if I said it's great. It was absolutely wonderful, and the work you're doing is mind-blowing. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. So I do have a couple of questions, if you allow me. The first one is kind of more generic. How do you see the role of SPE in resources management going forward, especially with if the merger to happen, and how that will be in collaboration with the UNEC?
Oh, I can take that. I see this, as I mentioned, through the collaboration in the, let's say, forging this guidelines. Let's take back the SPE has been behind, at least on the technical side at the beginning, with the definition of the United Nations framework classification based on SPE PRMS. I think now what we're looking for is really it's if you want help in become the ambassadors of sustainable resource management. It's a little bit the way I am within the SPE Italian board. I'm there exactly as an ambassador of this work at the UN. And what it will be nice to do is to really make sure that each chapter of student chapter, young professional within the SPE takes on board these principles and collaborate with a young member of the EGRM to coordinate inputs, because all you need now is inputs for practical action to make an impact on the guidelines and make sure that point of view is taken into the framework. We talked recently to the program chair of the hackathon of the OMC. And after the hackathon, they're focusing on SDG 7. What came out is a real different perspective that you have in progressing towards sustainability. It's embedded in the technical choices that you make, and this has to be taken into account. There is no way that we can forge a future in energy without crafting it around what you want to see. And so we really hope that in the next few months we can frame some form of collaboration and move also into the arena of the UN. That is the best platform to globalize this discussion, your vision and the way you would like to support this initiative.
Thank you so much for the answer. I also want to ask another question that is kind of specific to the women group within EGRM. As you said, you're looking to globalize the initiative. As of now, you're working basically, as I understood, in ECE area, but then you'll be looking into moving towards the other 4 areas of the United Nations. How do you see the challenges in doing this? Because from our experience in SPE, every region has their own, energy, way of doing things, and so on and so forth. So yeah, again, how do you, what are the challenges and how do you see yourself doing this?
Well, maybe I want to take this and invite Cristina to share the thank you slide, because that is also a way of doing that. Contact us. I mean, we are open to receive your recommendations. But what we are going to do now is to expand the committee and appoint leaders of sub-tasks, for example, for renewables, for mining, for critical minerals and others, and expand the network that we have in those areas. By inviting experts in those areas, we are confident that they will also raise the momentum and call into action those other experts at the global scale. We need the young professionals in this story, because what we are building now, projects and workflows, sometimes will take 4 to 5 years, for example, to build a solar farm, right? So we are building now things that you guys will use, will lead, will ingrain in your companies. So we need to hear from you that you are a voice that actually help in the shaping of the future, okay? So we need you.
And if I can add one thing in terms of globalization, and I forgot to mention, the UNFC actually, besides being mapped against the existing classification system, like for minerals and for petroleum, has actually been mapped to national classification system. So to the Russian system, for instance, for resource classification, as the Chinese and the Mexican too. So the system is being already adopted and it's recommended, for instance, within the African Union. So within these groups operating in the mapping of this system, there is the direct plug into accessibility to experts that can support exactly that global approach that we are after. Exactly because it's under the spell of the UN and all the member states are represented. And this is one of the focus of our group, is to have one person that will support each of the work we do in each commodity at global level. So making sure that we are having a global perspective in this work, not just from where we are.
Thank you so much for your answers. Now the floor is open. If anyone has any question, you can write it in the chat or maybe, unmute and ask your question.
Yes, I have one. Actually, I'm very excited for having you and having this great energy in your speech. It was very, very interesting and amazing to have you today, and it was very informative and funny way to have two speeches from you and Maria. Talking about YP Congress, the event that is running now, and young professionals for utilizing a new initiative, how the young members can be utilized and be used to achieve your goals, the best utilization of the young members, in your opinions.
Cristina, you take it first.
I can take this one. Yes, of course. As I mentioned, the best ways to participate. So the task of the young member group that is just born within the EGRM, that actually is linked to the MIT, starting there, has the objectives of not just sharing the understanding of the UNFC, how to use it, the importance for global policies and framework, regional framework, but really to give an input into the areas that they feel are important for achieving sustainability. That's why I was very interested in hearing what is the result of your thinkathon today and see which areas of the SDGs you feel are incredibly important for achieving your future. So this is the kind of connection that is needed, understanding which are the important areas and grab from your creativity and your ideas, how can we make it happen and turn this into inputs within this framework? Because when we look at projects moving forward and we see those three axes, it's all about making sure we're making the right choice and making sure we're not leaving behind important aspects like the socioeconomic aspect, so social environmental aspects. So on this, you can have an input on how much you want this to be visible and what needs to be done. When we talk about the social license to operate, for instance, it's not defined. So it may well be having an input on this because you feel very strong about this. The energy transition and the just transition is all about people. How can we have a transition without people at the center of our actions? So in this sense, it's expected that there is an input from you and the group that will be working within the EGRM to define the next generation framework that is the UN RMS.
And for my side, what I would like to highlight is that the young could be part of our task force teams. And we will be inviting young professionals to be part of that, men and women, because currently the leadership is men, but the young people and the young professionals, they do not see a difference in the leadership of men or women. And that is why we need you on board, because it is thanks to you that you will highlight what are the gaps in gender aspects, because this is our focus. Cristina and I are focusing and looking at if the women are well represented in what every segment of resource management. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria and Cristina. We have a question from Rebecca. She is thanking you for the wonderful presentation and asking about, can you highlight what partnership with UNESE has on sustainable finance initiative on a border level? What you mean by diversity, or mentioning diversity?
I didn't catch the last part of your question.
Can you highlight what partnership with UNESE has on sustainable finance initiative on a border level? She is mentioning the diversity.
Hold on. Is he on the chat so I can probably read, because I can't.
Yeah,
Well,
it says
I can jump in and ask as well if that, if that
Yes,
helps.
yes, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry, I didn't want to interrupt the flow because it's a great conversation, Maria and Christina. Wonderful presentation. I loved how you've done that and all the work that you two have done. I'm curious on if you can expand a bit on what type of strategic partnerships or alliances the UNECE has or has been working on, particularly with respect to sustainable finance initiatives. Because when you look back over the last few years, the research coming out on ESG trends in financing, clearly shows the benefits of diversity and those companies that have diversity in their workforce and in their leadership. And so I'm just curious to see if the area of finance is one that the UNECE has branched out into, and if you could talk about that for just a moment.
We can only talk about the group, the EGRM. As I mentioned, is a voluntary group within the sustainable energy division. So within this group, of course, the engagement with the financial community has been really high since the beginning. There is a commercial working group that is actually defining how the UNFC can be, and the UNRMS coming up, how can be used as a system for instigating the right financial inputs to projects. So taken into account the ESGs, but it doesn't have a direct input or a direct connection with a specific board on this subject. So it's embedded in the discussion, but we are not, as an EGRM, directly linked to a specific board or group. But there is, though, there have always been inputs from this sector within the UNFC framework and its definition.
Well, there are also other things important to mention, and those are that I just shared in the chat. For example, a cooperation with the European Investment Bank to support countries that are on scarce resources in order to develop their resource management things. Also, I think that there are a variety of reports that will speak. Not only, this is a two-way avenue, I mean, in which the UNESE provides funds, but also receives donation. And I have shared also a report about the UNC Commission in relation to that topic. But again, centering our response on our focus, which is in particular the women promotion, right? We are talking about gender equality and the SDG 8, decent work. I would like to highlight that due to the pandemic, the United Nations had also some funds available to support the tragedy that was the loss of work of many women. And we got access to very small amount of funds, but still important for us, for our small voluntary effort that was dedicated to do a research. And we had the opportunity to tap into consultancy in order to provide results about what was the situation of women entrepreneurs in mining in East Europe. And I think that research is available online. I will now search for you, provide the link, because it was, it found important elements to share about what is required for women in order to support generally the value chain, okay, of the energy resource management and access to financial literacy in order to gain more opportunities. Thank you, Rebecca. That is a very important question.
Thanks. Wonderful answer from both of you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for the great question. And thank you, Maria, for sharing the link in the chat. Do we have any more questions? Okay, none so far. So I think it's safe to close the discussion at this point. Thank you all for our speakers today. It was a great session. And thank you for the audience, for attending today. Please, if you have any questions, not now, maybe later, you can reach out to all our speakers. And also you can watch this session on demand if you were not able to attend from the beginning on SPE website and also on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mohammed, for having me as a co-host with you, and over to you.
Thank you, Nihal. It's an honor always to have you. I would like to thank our speakers and my great panelists today, Maria, Christina, Rebecca, and Isabella. It was very honor and a great speech to have you today. I would like also to thank our sponsor Shell for sponsoring this version of SPE Young Professionals Congress. And now almost all the team has finished their pitches. They presented their thoughts about how to apply the Sustainable Development Goals in practical. So the evaluation is on the way. Now we will have a break till I think 10:30, and then we will start our awarding ceremony and the briefing session. Thank you all for joining us today, and it's my pleasure to have you today. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Nihal and Mohammed, very well done. Very well run panel. Do you have the slide to show the runner break, and we're getting back at the half hour?
Yes, I'm sharing it now. Thank you, Leon, for your support.
Hello to everyone. I hope you are all inside. We are super sharp, I would say. I hope I haven't made any mistakes. Otherwise, it can be quite a problem. Let me just check the last numbers. Oop. Okay, it looks like everything is working. We just received one more evaluation from the jury. So I have just to quickly add it and check if everything is missing or changing. Text. Yep. Let me check. No, it looks like doesn't change anything. So we can definitely start. How was it? Really would like to hear some opinion here. So because it's also a debriefing session. So how let's start like this. I will start with sharing this. So we have selected for each category the team who has received the maximum points. Just consider, it's just a feedback to improve, and also there were 12 amazing teams, so don't take it personally. And just, and in case you want a personal feedback, both as a team and both as people, you can always ask, because the jury has really done a lot of also qualitative feedbacks. So so it would be good to receive them, in case we will also send it by email. But now start from the mentors evaluation on the teamwork. And here we have 4 teams who receive the best average, the best points, I would say. And one is, Team H. Then just let me check who are Team H. Team H with sustainable ecosystem and energy solution. Then we have Team I with water injection revamping and optimization in operated oil and gas field. The name is also Aqua. And then we have K, energy soldiers, blue water project. And then we have Team L, synergy, sustainable multi-use offshore platform. So congratulations teams, you already have an award. Here, since it was also a debriefing, yes, here also it is also a debriefing. I've collected some points from some good points from mentors who say that team was resilient and very resourceful to come up with very creative solution, demonstrated emotional intelligence and respect to diversity, wonderful experience, great energy and vibes, funny, focus and hard work. Team has very clear job assignment and they are really independent, highly motivated to deliver the project. Really grasp new concepts and ideas, awesome level of commitment. So these were all the things who worked. I'm collecting some things that didn't work, so I also encourage you to tell us also from team's participant point of view what didn't work. Also, we can improve next year. So there was need a little bit of follow-up. There were some team members that did not participate very much. However, their view is only on active parties, as we always say. Recovering very fast from initial setback due to low participant turn-up and regrouping. And then there was some difficulty to synergize since some people were unavailable or inactive. And so there is an advice to start maybe knowing with the team 7 days early, so the teams know each other, and then we can start, we can fix every problem before to give the problem and everything. But now we go on the side of communication, and from clarity of presentation, Team K, Energy Soldiers with the Blue Water Project, won the award. And for effectiveness of storyline, we have 2 awards. One is Team C, Business, Energy, Environment, and Sustainability with the red blanket. And then again, Team K. Effectiveness of oral exposure, we have Team C again, and Team K again. So for overall best communication strategy, the award is for Team K, Energy Soldiers, and Blue Water Project. For originality of the idea, the award goes to Team J. Team J is Q3, a reveal scenario, the utilization of CO2 artificial tree for a better future. Very nice, well done. And then completeness of the solution, we have Team K. Focus on the problem, we have Team F and O, Solar Titans, utilizing solar energy in lowering artificial lift systems engaged in hydrocarbon extraction. Good luck, congratulations and well done. Then we have the award for feasibility, Team L, Synergy, Sustainable Multi-Use Offshore Platforms. Congratulations. Identify stakeholders, Team L again. Execution and implementation plan, Team G. Team G is Energy, the Philippine Solar City, strategic investment in solar park to empower rural communities. Congratulations. Overall, best idea, Team K, Energy Soldiers with the Blue Water Project. Third place. So, okay, I have to create some suspense here, otherwise. So we are closing with the 3 overall winner of this competition. And so let's start from the 3rd place. And 3rd place is for Team G with Energy, the Philippine Solar City. Strategic investment, solar park to empower rural communities. Super congratulations. And now we have the 2nd place. Team L. Team L, Synergy, Sustainable Multi-Use Offshore Platform. Congratulations. And then now the winner is, the winner is Team K with Energy Soldiers, Blue Water Project. Here the background of the project was on renewable gasoline and on algae project for decommission platforms. Really would like to say to everyone, really congratulations for the participation. And we will also provide some certification for your participation. And of course, if there is some award, we will send you. We have the full evaluation criteria, and we don't think it's nice to give the overall, I mean, the points for all the teams. But if you want your own points, we can of course provide. And also we have a lot of really useful comments from the juries that can help, and we can definitely share by email. So really thanks to all of you to have participated here. And of course, this is time if you somehow have some feedbacks from the initiative, and is happy to share. So feel free to take the word and talk.
Well, let me just say congratulations to everyone. It's been really great. It's been a great event, I would say. Really diverse, really multicultural, people from all over the world. and also really committed into joining us from all the time zones possible of the world. So we've got people joining at night, at midday, at early in the morning. So thank you very much to everyone for the commitment. It really tells a lot about the energy that us, the young professionals, can bring to this kind of association, to the SPE, and also to the energy world. So congratulations again to everyone, and well, thanks for joining us.
Patricia,
Are you
do you
going
want
to take a photo?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's take a nice pic. Well, and also, well, really thanks to all the jury members. I can see here someone joined us, Alison, William, and well, you are too many actually to name everyone. So, well, again, thank you very much for your work. You did great, and well, it's been a pleasure having you as our special guests. So thank you. I hope you also enjoyed it. I mean, it's a pretty unique thing in the SPE. It's the first kind of event of, I mean, of this kind, and so I hope you liked it.
Thank you very much for the invitation. For me, I personally enjoyed it a lot. I think it's a very good opportunity to get to know more about different ideas, and I would say everyone who participated, all the teams are winners. Even I know we have to go with 1, 2, 3 winners, but everyone, they put the time, they get to know about the topics, they come up with a solution in a very short time. So they're all winners, and they should be glad with that. So thank you very much for letting us be a part of this opportunity.
Yeah, I'd second that. You've done a great job organizing this, and it was so tough to come together from all over the world and do that in that short amount of time. And yeah, fantastic to see it. That's how startups work. I work in a startup, and your ideas morph and move on, and it was wonderful to see people working together and doing that.
Just a quick word on behalf of the Business Management and Leadership Committee. Just want to applaud the organizing committee for an amazing event. They've really set the scene for hopefully repetition of these events. The midweek program was great. I think the ideation and the originality of the ideas coming out of the teams, amazing. So let's keep this going for the SPE, and great energy. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks to all, and that's
Thank you,
true.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It was really nice working with the teams and getting them to put their ideas together, guiding them. It was really nice, and then we met people from different parts of the world. We had to manage time, and so many ideas were flowing. So I think it's something that should be continued. Well done to the organizers, and well done to everyone, jury, mentors, and all the teams. It was really a great pleasure being on this.
Thank you for this really kind feedback, Amina. Really appreciate it. And well, I think we all hope that this event becomes something really frequent. I would say not more than 1 in a year. Otherwise, as organizational team, we're gonna get crazy. But yeah, we could make it an yearly event. But yeah, also a particular thanks to Julia, to Mohammed, and also to Leon for steering us, and for a really nice mentorship also about all the back office work, how to plan this kind of event. It's been really great to have you as our, let's say, mentor. Thanks.
Last thank you from my side. I would like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to be a member in this great event. Actually, this event is the real meaning of diversity and inclusion. From the team, for the organizer itself, the participants, the jury, literally everyone from everywhere of the world thinking together, building teams, succeeded to make the first delivery, second delivery, and presenting their ideas today in Congress, representing really the YPN students from all over the world. I would like to thank you all. A special thanks for Maria, of course, for leading us, and for Leon for monitoring us, for preparing and the idea and the organization through the couple of the months. And it's an honor again to be part of this great team. Thank you.
Well, just as a reminder to all of you, if you missed the sustainability part, the sustainability panel, which was held previously, it was great. It was really amazing. We had 4 special guests talking about sustainability topics under different point of views, let's say. It will be uploaded on the YouTube channel of WIMEC. So, and that will be the same for all the sessions that we had during last week. So this week, actually, from Monday to Friday, we had the YP Bootcamp by WIMEC. And it will be, it's already uploaded on the YouTube channel. And the sustainability panel will be uploaded as well in the YouTube channel. So check it out. It's in the YP Congress website. And it's, of course, through YouTube. It's a Young Member Engagement Committee, which is the acronym for WIMEC. And so you can check it out. It's definitely worth it. I mean, we did, the panelists, we did a really nice panel. So I encourage you to go check it out if you missed it. And well, thanks again to Shell, which is our main sponsor for the event, for this YP Congress. And well, if you have any feedback, guys, I'm really open to hear from you. Otherwise, we could, you know, see again next year, maybe even earlier.
Thanks a lot, and for all your solutions. As everyone said, it's really an award. You really need an award just to have collected all the idea, and it is a very good contribution, not only as ideas but also as energy. Really, when organizing this event, the idea is who would like to spend the weekend in trying to find solution to get our world more sustainable. You know, it's not that you're doing this for work or for master studies or something like that. So it's really also good to have your energy here, that you decide to spend this weekend instead of going around on brainstorming on sustainability and how to make our world a better place. So I think this will stay always in everyone's mindset, I hope. And that's, of course, the most important thing. Also, the most important thing about Gaia Sustainability Program, who wants to engage and mobilize people towards sustainability, that it starts from all the small gesture that we can do in our everyday life. So thanks so much. And bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
So see you at the next Ideathon next year.
See you at the next SPE event. You did great. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you. See you soon.
Have a nice day, evening.
Thanks, everyone. Great. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Well done, guys. Finally.